This is a meeting of the Lowell City Council Rules Subcommittee. We'll call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Mendonça.
Here.
Councilor Mercia. Here. 3 present.
Thank you, and I know there are other councilors present here as well, in a majority anyway of the council. So let me start by saying there have been 3 separate motions by Councilor Murphy that were referred to this subcommittee for consideration. And briefly, they are council to resolve the issue of requirements for a preliminary election, consider random ballot order in general. The council consider home rule petition to lower voting age to 17 for municipal elections. And then the third one was the council to discuss larger charter changes to increase civic participation, including combined districts, at-large system, and term limits. So those are the items under discussion for this meeting. I did hear this morning from somebody from UTEC, and we all know from our candidates forum back the last election, the interest of certain people at UTEC in at least the provision about lowering the voting age to 17. So I know the council acted favorably, at least the initial inquiry, the vote was 8-1 to refer that matter for further discussion to this committee and support, I think, the home rule petition required for that. But I know there are a number of folks here interested in that item. And so this is a subcommittee meeting, so I guess I'd open it up to other members of the subcommittee who have questions or comments. And then we'd hear from the public. Before I do that, I want to thank the solicitor for her work on this issue. There is a pretty well done and detailed memo that was distributed in the packet to the councilors this week about the process that would be required to be followed for any of these changes. And let me just say at the outset that every single one of the matters referred to in the motions, whether they were approved, they need approval by the council, but would also need approval by the state legislature and the governor. So not to discourage folks here, but this is the first step in a process that after it leaves here is pretty much beyond our control. So without belaboring anything further, I'd open up for comments to other members of the subcommittee if you have them. Councilor Mercier.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I fully support that the youth of our city play a vital part in many roles here. I know that there was a time when I needed help on a particular issue, and I needed manpower and woman power, and I didn't know where to turn, and I turned to UTEC, and I asked for your help, and I was provided with, I think, maybe 10 strong men and 1 exceptionally strong woman, and you helped me tremendously. So I think there's that partnership there where you have an issue, you brought it through your messenger, being Patrick Murphy, and he brought it forward. Now, we don't want to discourage you. We may support this, but it has to go through the proper process. Perhaps if it were up to us, we would have that happen, because I figured that when I look around and have dealt with many 17-year-olds, they're very bright. There's no draft, but you can go into the service. You can give your life for this country. And they're not saying that you have to be 18, you can be 17. So with those thoughts alone, it's strong support for what you're intending to do. You want a piece of the voting process. You want your share of democracy, and I think that's commendable to each and every one of you. But I don't want to sit here and have you believe that because we have a rules subcommittee that these things are going to change and you're going to be able to vote. I don't want to give you false hope, because it'll then have to go to the State House, and they have to talk about it and do what they have to do. So I don't want to say that because we support it or I support it, it's going to happen. But I commend you for any time we have a chamber full of people that are so exuberant enthusiastic to change the laws and make things happen. I think that's remarkable. You're a credit for being here as well. I commend Councilor Murphy for bringing this issue up. There are two other issues here. I don't support all of them, I'll be perfectly honest, but this one I do. But some of things require charter changes. In fact, we have to probably, in some respects, to some of this dialogue, we'd probably need a charter commission to study this and talk about it. There are other ways that we could do this perhaps too, but I'll be looking forward to hear those of you that'll come to the podium and express your opinion. And I favor what you're doing, and I admire you being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mendonça?
Yes, so it's great to have plenty of people here and interested in this issue. It shows that there's some support out there, and I'm glad you're taking an interest in the civics here in the city. And I'd like to hear from all of you, so I'm looking forward to all of to that. Could I suggest to the chair that maybe if we could have the solicitor briefly give us a summary of what our options are as far as making any of these changes, and then proceed to having the people speak on the issue?
Is that okay, Councilor? Yes. All right, fine. Madam Solicitor?
Thanks. Well, the issue that to which you've just been speaking with respect to the age, that's one that is governed by state statute, and to that the city could seek a home rule amendment. The rest of them would require a charter change. However, as and it's spelled out actually in an earlier opinion by Attorney Leahy in the Law Department, all the different options that would satisfy a charter change. Of those, and you can go through the lengthy process of a charter commission and things of that nature. However, the most efficient and quickest way of achieving any desired change that the council is potentially looking at would likely be done by means of a special act, which is essentially the same thing as a home rule petition.
In the history we had of these special acts, as I was reading the report, it seemed like the most common, or probably the easiest to get through the legislature, would be one where there's then a vote of the voters in the community to accept that home rule petition. Of course, that would only happen after it passes the state legislature and is signed by the governor. Then it would come back.
That's correct.
To the community for a vote.
That's correct. And it's not required, but it's something that, should the council decide to make a change and feel that it's of a nature that they would want to receive input from the public, as was the case with the proposed term limit issue, then subject to the council's discretion, that could be added to the special act as a requirement. Or you could do the special act just effective upon passage.
Okay, thank you.
So I want to be careful about the terminology, though, because we're talking about petitions home rule, at least in this memo, don't necessarily need ratification by the voters. Special act charter changes don't necessarily need that either.
That's right. Although
the history has been, I think, with virtually without exception, every time there's been a special act that impacts the charter, there has been a vote of the voters to confirm that.
I don't know that all of them have done that. That may be the case, right. But certainly the one with term limits did.
I think at least in the recent past.
Perhaps.
And we can take a look at that more carefully. But
right. And again, it's up to the discretion of the council. There may be reasons why the council would want to do that, and reasons for efficiency that that type of language isn't added to a special act.
Or the legislature might ask for that too, I suppose, right?
Right. The other thing that, particularly with a home rule petition, they're either effective upon passage or it will come back to the council, because sometimes the legislature may tweak the language in a way that is not acceptable to the city. So another avenue is to have it, one, effective upon passage, or two, to have it effective upon final approval of the council, given the final language.
Okay. But in any event, the thing about the voting age is not a charter change and wouldn't necessarily be part of those provisions. So that's
correct.
Part of the subsequent discussion.
Right.
Any other members of the council want to be heard on this before we take comments from the public? Council Murphy, do you have any other? All right. Well, I know some folks are here to offer their opinions, so we'd be happy to hear from anybody who wants to speak. We just ask you to give your name and address, and please limit your remarks to 5 minutes if you could, please. So if anybody wants to offer any comments on the issue of, I guess, the voting age of 17 or any of these other issues, just simply come to the podium and identify yourself, and we'll be happy to hear from you. Yes, sir.
Should I get my address and everything?
Just-
My name is Tommy Sam, TOMMYSAM, 227 Walker Street, Lowell, Massachusetts, 01851. Basically, what I want to direct you guys is to what UTEC is really all about, though, and basically what it is, though, is, UTEC is kind of like a family. We all come together, though, and it's not just like any other teen equality center, though. When UTEC comes together, it doesn't just grab the workforce or the staff there. We bring together all of Lowell, and, we stick to it. If we fall, they pick us back up. That's what UTEC is all about, though, and I think that's what, Lowell really needs, though. We have dropouts, you have the gangsters in the streets, but UTEC provides a home for them. If they have nowhere to go, dropouts like us that need GED, or people that need work, or people that need money to support their family, that's what UTEC brings to us. And as far as the voting is concerned, though, I think that, we're to the point where it's almost 2011, and UTEC provides us, with knowledge, though. They're trying to give us what kids their age never had before. So right now, a lot of teens of minds are developing a lot faster and a lot quicker. And so we want the voting age to drop to 17 because, a lot of minds are developed quickly now. A lot of, kids in high school, a lot of teens out there are a lot smarter than what people, take us for. Because of the way we look, because of the way we dress, they don't take us seriously enough. They look at us like, like we're a dog, like we're a mutt. That's society itself, though. But UTEC doesn't look at us like that. They look at us as, an equal. It doesn't matter about your age. It doesn't matter about how you look. We all come together as one. And, as one voice, UTEC provides that for all of us, though. And, we're just saying that we're just trying to reach out, and we just want you guys to go 50-50 with us, you know what I mean? We just want you to reach out and for you guys to reach back. That's all we want. We're just trying to show that Lowell is more than what people really think it is, though. And I think that for you guys to drop the voting age for us would really help us a lot. So thank you.
Thank you. I know it's not easy going first, so appreciate your remarks.
My name is Johnny. You want my address, right? 376 Adams Street.
Hello, my name is Osa Dogi. 14A Leverett Street, Lowell, Massachusetts. I am Vice President of the Lowell City Youth Council.
Hello, my name is Katrina Pellegrino, 1164 Middlesex Street. I am liaison between the Lowell City Youth Council and the University of Massachusetts Lowell.
As we know, we are the Lowell Youth Council. I'm secretary of the Lowell Youth Council. We are speaking today to express the Youth Council support lowering the voting age for local election in Lowell. We believe that lowering the voting age in Lowell will be the first step in letting youth have a direct voice in the community. So as Lowell has many leaderships of young kids today. When you look back, see dedication here. Kids, and I'm in the ROTC, I see kids, they step up. They know what's right and what's wrong. They decide what is good for us and what's wrong for not the right choice to make. So I believe lowering the voting age from 18 to 17 is a good idea for young kids to express their voice in the city of Lowell. 18, you're an adult. 17, you're a teenager still. Let's have a voice for us. We believe that being 17, you can't do very much. 18, you get to sign your own documents. You get to do more stuff than then 17. Let's have something for 17 years old. Being able to vote, it's just one of the biggest steps for a teenage to have. And these are the future of city of Lowell here. We're all standing right here while looking right at you guys. So hopefully that you pass this, and Mr. Caulfield, we hope that you support this too also. We hope so you do, but after today, but after give second thought, but we just that we hope that you guys lower down the age to 17, and this is your future you're looking at right here. For your kids, for your grandchildren, this is your future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Boren Yu. I'm a 16-year-old junior at Lowell High School. My address is 373 Westford Street, Lowell, Massachusetts, 08851.
Hi, my name is Shauna Toure. I'm a 17-year-old senior at Lowell High. My address is 454 Westford Street, apartment 2, 01851. We're both youth organizers with the United Teen Equality Center. We would like to thank you on behalf of all the young people who are responsible for last year's candidates forum. All of the teens in Massachusetts that await the opportunity to vote one day, and all of our city supporters across the country.
We know that you're all great champions when it comes to standing up for youth voices, and we'd like to thank you for always participating in UTEC's candidates forums, for helping us set up the first ever Lowell Youth Council, and for working with us on all our efforts to advocate on behalf of Lowell's future generations. We're all here in this room today because we greatly support the idea of lowering the Lowell's voting age from 18 to 17. We see the decision for our city. It's a great decision for our city to lead on and increase voter participation in local elections. Lowell, throughout the history, has pretty much been a national pilot. And it's a chance for other cities around us, as well as cities across the country, to see our success and to emulate the youth and city council's actions. Lowell, like I said, has a great tradition of leadership. We've led the way in America's Industrial Revolution. We've led the way in the labor rights with our history with the Mill Girls, fighting for fair and equal labor laws. And we also have a great diversity and cultural heritage. This chance to lower the voting age in municipal elections will be another trophy our city can celebrate as we seek to expand democracy to younger citizens. Being 18 and in high school, you're pretty much, you're typically a senior, and being a senior, an 18-year-old senior in high school is a great transition in your life because you're transitioning from being in high school to going off to college, going to the military, or doing whatever you're doing after high school. And by lowering the voting age from 17 in local elections, we can work with the students while they're still in high schools to get them registered, get them educated, and proactively voting in the community, and get their word in before they actually leave high school. All of this would lead to civic habits which young people in Lowell and across the nation will take with them throughout their lives to continue to improve our democracy here in Lowell and across the U.S.
Aside from the benefits of having younger citizens engaged in municipal elections here in Lowell, it's also about the idea that as young as 14, we're paying taxes and working while we're still in high school. At 16, we can legally drive, and by age 17, we can enlist in the Army and to fight and defend our country. The right to vote is an American tradition, and to gain that right while we are participating in other American responsibilities would be an act which celebrates the tradition of democracy in our nation. We are here because we firmly believe that teenagers in our city are fully active and engaged citizens when given certain opportunities. It is why we at UTEC put on the Candidates Forum, why we organize on the local and statewide level to get civics education back into our public schools, why we help to start the first ever Governor's Youth Council, and why we work on any other efforts we can think of which helps young people grow into productive and successful citizens. We look forward to working with all of you in the future to support the great work you started here tonight, and we will continue to offer our help and energy as this petition reaches the state legislature. On behalf of all young people that are educated, empowered, and ready to do their civic duty of voting, thank you again, counselors, for being our advocates and partners in this effort.
Thank you. Other speakers?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Lowell City Council, my name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street. I want to just talk about this particular subject now. When this motion came up in the regular City Council meeting, I had some mixed emotions. I mean, I favored it, but I also said that I wish it would also be allowed for state and federal elections, which would mean changing the state constitution for state elections and U.S. Constitution to lower the voting age in the federal elections for president. Because if you give young people 17 years old the right to vote in municipal elections, they should be allowed to vote in state and federal elections, in my opinion, particularly as 17-year-olds can register to go into the military. So I do want to say that I do favor the concept of the 17-year-olds voting in the regular elections, but we also, in the municipal elections, but we also need to look at some time in the future in the state and the federal to amend the constitution to allow them to vote in state and federal elections as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other comments from members of the public on this question? Any? Okay. Hearing none, I'd open up for further comments from members of the subcommittee or city council. Any other councilors want to be heard? Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the members of the Rules Subcommittee convening this meeting. And I also want to applaud and thank over 30 teenagers who are here in the council chambers. I wish we had this many people when we discussed the budget in June. It would be an eye-opener. And I want to praise you for standing up for your convictions and what you believe in. And you must also respect my vote on this issue. The rules of the land, the law states you have to be 18 years of age to be a qualified registered voter, not just in Massachusetts, but throughout the country. Now, I did call the Secretary of State's office, Mr. Chairman, when this vote came forward. In order for this to happen, the legislature would have to amend the state law indicating that 18-year-olds are voters. Also, there's a legal question, is if a 17-year-old can vote, would that 17-year-old be eligible to run for public office in Lowell? Also, I have a question, Mr. Chairman. The present system in the election office, the current software, it's furnished by the state, and that software will only accept 18-year-olds to be registered voters. In order to register 17-year-old voters, the city of Lowell would have to purchase and finance a new system just to register 17-year-old potential voters. And even after they did that, once they turned 18, they would have to re-register again. This petition is in the State House. This petition will be heard by members of the legislature. There's been 2 other communities in the state that filed petitions such as this. They didn't get anywhere. Nowhere. if they had voted, if the legislature had voted in favor of one of those communities, you would have a flood of communities asking to change the voting from 18 to 17 or 16. My grandson, who will be 15 next year, asked me, how come they're not changing it for me? Where will you draw the line? 18 to 17, what about a 16-year-old? The law of the land is 18 years of age, and I applaud you for being here. I wish more people would come to the council chambers and get to that podium and stand up for what you think is right. But the vote was 8-1, and I cast the dissenting vote. 18 years of age is when you can register to vote in Lowell, Tingsboro, or Tewksbury, or in Beverly, or Newton, or in the Cape Cod. That's the law of the land. And if the legislature does support this, it means you can only vote for a city councilor or a school committee member. If you're going to change, I want you to vote for everyone, not just a councilor or a school committee person. So I appreciate you being here. I applaud you. And I think UTEC is a tremendous, tremendous facility. And I applaud Greg Croto and the staff, the leadership. I've been down to UTEC many, many times. I know you work a farm in Drake-it, and you do great, great things. But it's not fair to be leading you down a path, thinking that you're going to be able to vote when you're 17, when I honestly believe that it's not going to get out of the legislatures or Beacon Hill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are a couple points to address there. The point of the home rule petition really is to amend the law for Lowell to be able to allow 17-year-olds. 40 years ago, it was a law, or roughly 40 years ago, it was the law that 21-year-olds were the only ones allowed to vote. That was able to be changed. It can still be changed for 17-year-olds here in the city. I think that as a sort of public policy matter, that the more we prepare 17-year-olds in exercising that right to vote, in researching candidates and policy ideas, the more prepared they will be at the age of 18 to vote in state, in national elections. So we don't have to go through a whole constitutional amendment process to open it up to all elections. We can start with something small, start with something local and understandable, and build that habit, lifelong habit, of being able to participate and see how that participation results in change in the community itself. And to return to a point that Councilor Mercier made, that this would have to go to the state, that doesn't mean it's out of our hands. It doesn't mean that it's out of your hands. Because it was, in fact, a lot of the teens behind us here today that are responsible for this coming forward in the first place. And there's no reason why their participation down at the State House can't further drive the success of this petition down there. I think that the message would be really that the more active you are, the greater the chance you have to get things changed. And it just because something's law doesn't mean that it can't be changed. And so, certainly you don't want to provide some kind of false hope, but there is hope, and things can be changed. And I wouldn't want to overlook that either. The only further thing I would say on this particular issue is to keep at it, to stay involved, and to keep pushing for that change, and you might actually find that things do turn around in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Further comments or discussion on this issue? Councilman Mendonça.
Yes, I agree with some of the points that have been made by the people who came to the podium, especially the point about taxation, because if you have learned your history, you realize that the reason this country came to be was that they didn't have representation, yet they were being taxed. So I like that point that was made by one of the speakers. You do work at some as early as 14, most after the age of 16, but between the age of 16 and 18, they still charge you income taxes and other taxes, yet you aren't able to vote. So I think that was a very good point. And I agree with Councilor Murphy that there's no reason we can't proceed to at least ask. We don't have to say no on our own. We can put it up to the state legislature and see if they will act on it. That's part of the reason why I brought up the point of having a subsequent local election to accept that. I personally feel that it would have a better chance of passing the legislature if they saw that there was going to be a local election following that where the residents of the city would adopt it or not, depending on how they feel. So if it got that far, you would have to lobby for that. There would be a campaign for that to make it happen. But there would be more likely for it to come back. In the packet we received from the city solicitor, it did state that the Attorney General has argued against it in the past and would probably argue against it again. But if there were a local election to accept it, it again might stand a better chance of getting back to the city in order for there to be a vote. The downside of that is, of course, that it wouldn't happen quickly. Even if we got it in to the legislature today, by the time it came back to the city and then we scheduled another election, it might be not in 2011, it might be in 2013. The question is it worth moving forward, or does that mean that because you don't benefit from it, we don't proceed? I personally think we should go ahead and proceed. I would recommend that it have the local election acceptance as part of the provision to bring that forward, and it would increase its chances. And again, I thank all of you for coming down and showing support for this. It's, again, great public participation, and as my colleague stated, it would be good if we had this kind of participation in other issues as well. So stay involved, come down. Even though you are maybe not eligible to be registered to vote yet, you can still come down and speak on issues that are important to you. And just one correction, and the solicitor can correct me if I'm wrong, you do not have to be 18 to register to vote. You have to be 18 to vote. So if you are going to be 18 on election day, you can come down and register to vote while you're 17. So that gives you at least maybe up to 6 weeks. And the other point I'd like to make is that if you are able to vote in municipal elections at 17, with the possible exception of those that have birthdays in November, you would be 18 for the next state election. So that would not, in my opinion, cause a problem with state elections. And in the packet that I have regarding what that law that requires you to be 18 applies to, it specifically lists which elections that applies to, and it's state offices. It doesn't say anything about local elections. So that leaves us with a small opening, small because the legislature would still have to pass this, to try and get this through. So I would support sending the measure to the legislature and then see what they do with it. And that would mean that if it did go there, you'd have to lobby your legislators to get it through.
Councilor Dakota?
Thank you. First, I would like to say to all of you who are here that you have already achieved your goal, because just by your presence here, even though we cannot make this change, you have contributed to city government, and so you should commend yourself for that. That's a great achievement. We rarely see 17-year-olds or 27-year-olds and 47-year-olds in this room. So thank you very much for coming. We appreciate that. Now, I want you to understand there are logistically some questions that have come up tonight that are valid, and something that we haven't heard is that the way we have our city elections every 2 years, every second group of 17-year-olds will not get to vote. So every other year, 17-year-olds will have an opportunity to vote. And then there'll be a series of 17-year-olds who don't get to vote, and then again. So some of you, even if this does pass in the State House, some 17-year-olds will get to vote and some will not. And also, if it's true that you have to re-register when you turn 18, this is and always will be your responsibility. And I don't want to lecture you at all, but someone mentioned empowerment, and power cannot be given to you. It's something that you have to take responsibility and own yourself. And so whether or not this passes, and I again commend you for being here and I support the idea of it, whether or not it passes, you are still all responsible for the future of your own city and country, and you are taking on that responsibility. So thank you very much for being here.
Okay, any further comments? I did see a couple other people maybe wanted to speak or respond to some of the things that were said. Is that, yeah, you can come forward.
I just wanted to refer what he was saying before about, like, you know, there has been rules stated in the United States though saying that, yeah, you do have to be 18 to vote. But at the same time though, nobody in this building, nobody in the world would have expected to have a black president. Look at Barack Obama. I mean, he's all about change. And right now, we're not demanding your help. We're asking for it, though. And even on that little hope of thread, like you said, there's an opening, just a small one. That's all we're asking for. We want that small opening, though, because we want change. We're not, like, when all of us came up here to talk on this podium, we're not speaking for us and just of Lowell. We're speaking for everybody in the States, whether it's the East Coast, the West, the North or the South, Texas, Cali, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're speaking for everyone, not just for us. We're not just doing it for our families. We're doing it for your families, your daughters, your sons, your grandchildren. And, you know, we're hoping that this in general will help the nation all together, though, because just like UTEC, we're all part of this country together, though, and we're all just trying to bring it together. So thank you. That's all I want to say.
I just wanted to say that I think that at 17, you're getting ready for adulthood at 18. So sometimes 17-year-olds don't know at 18 what to do and what to expect. At 18, you have so much more responsibilities. I think that at 17 will be a very good push towards the 18-year-old and all the responsibilities that you have. As 17-year-old, as myself, at 17, I still had no worries at all. I still had nothing to worry about until I hit 18, and then I had to hit the real world and get an apartment and pay bills and stuff. So I have younger brothers, and I would like them to learn a little bit of more responsibility. And one of my brothers just turned 16, and he will turn 17 soon, and I think that it'd be a great opportunity, it'd be great to open up that gate for them to be able to say, I have an opportunity to be someone instead of stay on the street and do stuff that they might think is right, you know? And I think being able to vote and letting them know about the people who they're voting for would be a great way to get them in the right path. My younger brother, who is 16, and he's very into politics, and he's still in high school. I dropped out, I'm getting my GED. Everyone in my family dropped out, and he might be the first one to graduate high school, and I think that him liking politics and him being 16, and with this movement of the 17-year-old being able to vote, that he might actually be somewhere where you guys are now. And I would love to see that happen. I would love to see my family would love to see something like that happen. So I guess I just want to say that change is very beautiful, and it progresses in the future. So more things can be open, and we can make the world better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Don't worry about paying those bills. It only lasts for 60 or 70 years, then it goes away. Mayor Millinard, oh, I'm sorry. Well, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, ma'am. Yeah.
I just wanted to speak on the point that it's just a little tiny step. You said that municipal elections are just about city council members and school committee members. Well, school committee members decide on the high school and on the middle school. When people are 18, they're either seniors getting ready to go away to college or to go to UMass Lowell, or they're already in college. So I think, sure, there's the exceptions. I myself am gonna graduate at 16, but I know that I'm gonna leave. Anyways, don't you think that the people that are gonna elect, that are gonna be affected by the school committee should be voting on who they want to vote on the bigger issues like the budget and everything else that the school committee does and that city council itself does? So, yeah, thank you.
Excuse me. The city clerk has asked that the two last speakers give your name and address for the record, please. So would you please come back up for the record? Just give the clerk your name and address, please.
My name is Tanisha Laporte, 74 Branch Street.
Okay, thank you. And, yeah.
Flor Angel Suero, 17 James Street.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Mr. Croto?
Greg Croto from 138 Mount Vernon Street, Lowell. I just want to thank the full council again and thank all the young people who are here tonight for speaking on behalf of this. So thank you again. And I really want to thank the council for bringing this forward. You know, our young people talk a lot about giving back and getting involved in the community, and we brought the issue forward in the council. To have it be brought forward for a vote was momentous for us and really brought a lot of passion and kind of re-energized the young people. So we really appreciate everything you did in bringing this forward. I just wanted to bring one other point, which was that we also coordinate a statewide coalition of youth agencies. So one of the things our young people are doing as well is they're also trying to reinstitute the idea of a civics class as a mandate in high school graduation. And if we can combine that, and there's been very good movement in that this year in particular, if we can combine that with the actual ability to vote while you're in school, while you're having this class, it's a huge factor for us. So I think that, although I understand the idea of bringing it back to the ballot and to have that might be a good leverage point for us, but the 3-year wait would really, we have such movement now, and we have this ability to go forward with the statewide civics campaign, the ability to move on this now, and know that there has been precedence for home rule petitions to kind of take it forward to the legislature would be hugely appreciated. And I think we're ready, and I can speak for UTEC, that we're ready to work at the State House as well. So thank you again.
Mayor Milanazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to thank the young people and the representatives from UTEC for being here tonight and for bringing this issue forward. Again, it's not going to be an easy road, but I think back to the special legislation that this council, former council, supported regarding the reinvention of Julian steel, which we were told would never happen. In fact, we actually had the Archdiocese of Boston that took a position against that, and that happened through the good work of the community and the state delegation. And I do know that I can say with confidence that the state delegation has worked very closely with UTEC on various projects, especially regarding the building over on Hurd Street. So I do have confidence in the representatives from UTEC, the young people working through a statewide coalition, working with our state delegation, that they will bring this issue forward. This is the first step in many steps, and I certainly do support going forward. I do have a procedural question. It was mentioned that this has already gone to the state legislature. I know that we had a vote, 8-1, to send it to the subcommittee, but I don't believe it's gone anywhere at this particular point in time.
Mr. Mayor, I think you're correct on that. I did, if you saw me try and speak to the clerk earlier, that's what I was asking. I think the vote was 8-1 to send it to the subcommittee for discussion. So I do think that we do have to take a formal vote this evening to, to actually send the home rule petition.
Okay, thank you. But again, I congratulate the young people for being here, and I think that some of what was said earlier about having a say in the school department budget really rings true as chairperson of the school committee. And I know that when I was 16 or 17 years old, I probably wouldn't have had the courage to step before the city council to talk about some of the things that they've talked about tonight, so I really do want to congratulate them.
Thank you. Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question for the solicitor. Madam Solicitor, in the communication we received from you on the home rule petition to lower the voting age from 17 to 18, the last paragraph, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 51, states that the age requirement is 18 years of age or older for all voters in any city or town, and further, that a person who is not 18 years of age or older is not qualified to vote in any election, state or local. My question to you is, would the legislature have to amend Massachusetts general laws in order for this to be enacted?
It would have to amend the Massachusetts general laws as it applies to the city of Lowell via a home rule petition.
Just to the city of Lowell or the entire state?
No, it would just apply to the city of Lowell. Just in the same way that we seek relief from various state laws where there isn't an intent to necessarily have exclusive jurisdiction, as in this case would be, say, local elections, but it would just apply to the city of Lowell. And we would essentially be exempting ourselves, with the blessing of the legislature, from the requirements of current state law as it applies to the voting age for local elections.
One other question. Would a 17-year-old who is able to vote in Lowell, would they also be able to run for public office?
That was not a question that I had ever researched.
Well,
it wasn't anything that was
the legal counsel at the Secretary of State's office told me there's a legality there that has to be addressed. So, I mean...
The issue that the council voted on that was sent to the law department was a fairly narrow one, and that was simply, in local elections, can the law be changed to include or lower the voting age to 17-year-olds? If the council wished, the law department could research the remaining issues as well that may or may not go along with that. But as far as the narrow issue, that's all that was looked at.
Anything further on this? Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I just want to say that the greatest expression of democracy is the right to vote. And I remembered when Africa had much unrest in that nation, and they did get the right to vote, and they held a special election. And when we have a special election, it takes a day. The majority of people that wanted to vote in Africa, the lines were over the hills and valleys and around the bend and here and there, and it took them 3 days to finish voting. So what does that tell you? It tells you that that's a piece of democracy that is so sacred, in my opinion. And I take you back to the old adage that says, nothing ventured, nothing gained. We could sit on our hands and do nothing, or you can move yourself to, like you did here tonight, And then, as Councilor Murphy said, if it is required by the state to make that decision, instead of sitting here, you can sit down there and do your job down there as you have done over here. I'm very, very proud of you. I want you to know that in the 20s, there's these two words called women's suffrage. That meant that women did not have the right to vote. So I wasn't around then, and neither were you. I'm sure we wouldn't have let that happen, right? So that's a good thing. So having said that, I would like to make the motion that we adopt and support the recommendation of the motion that Patrick Murphy brought forward and bring that up for the full council to adopt the whole rule petition and amend the law. We can amend laws. We can do that all the time. We have variances. It's called that rules are in place, but we have a variance. It amends the laws. Nothing is actually black and white. There's a little gray areas, and you can do that. So that's what we're doing here tonight, and that motion stands.
I'll second the motion.
Councilman Johnson.
I suspect that what we need to do is to have a request that the city solicitor, or through the city manager maybe, that the city council ask the city manager to have the solicitor prepare a proper home rule petition.
Madam Solicitor.
Question on that. Well, I suppose one of the issues that the council as a whole will have to decide is, will this be a home rule amendment that will take effect upon passage, upon vote of the council for acceptance after the legislature presumably has finished with the language, or is this something that also you would want going forward on local acceptance? So that would be a question that I would ask that get resolved before the full council.
Good point. My personal preference is that there be a local acceptance, but I would leave that up to a vote of the full council as to whether they want that in there or not.
Councilor Mercier.
Yeah, I kind of asked for a local acceptance as well. That would probably be the best thing. But you would draw the proper vote and bring it back at a later time, because you couldn't do that this evening. The chair will give the report of progress of this meeting that took place. You will then come back with a prepared vote.
It would be on for the next council
meeting,
agenda, right?
Which would be the 14th.
14th.
December 14th. Sure, that's fine.
Okay, so I guess the motion is to approve the motion to lower the voting age to age 17 for municipal elections, and the question of whether there be local acceptance or not would be open to discussion by the full council at the meeting. Is that?
That's right.
Okay. All right. So all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So so the motion carries. And so for those of you who don't follow parliamentary procedure every week, what that means is at the full council meeting that will convene at 6:30, we will vote to adopt this home rule petition. Given the nature of the discussion, it's likely to pass here at the city council. The open issues are whether this will be adopted by the state legislature, and then whether or not it will have to go to a vote of a citywide vote of everybody in the city to approve that. So that second issue will be debated by the full council at the meeting at 6:30, and then the final version will be voted next week and forwarded to the legislature if passed. So thank you all for your participation, and you're welcome to stay for the full council meeting if you so desire, and welcome to participate in the rest of this subcommittee meeting if you desire to do that as well.
And if I might add, Mr. Chairman, to all the students that are here, you don't have to be a voter to come up here at any time of the year to express your opinion. I had a group of youngsters that were like 10 and 12 years old that were following me around while I was campaigning many, many years ago. And I talked to them and I said, why are you following me? They said, because we know you're a city councilor and we want a skateboard park. Would you bring that message up for us? I said, I would, on one condition, if you come and help me, because I can't do this alone. I need your help. I said, if you want it bad enough, you're going to come up here and you're going to ask for it. I'll be guiding you, but you got to do that. We have 3 skateboard parks in the city, not because of me or any of my colleagues, but because 10 and 12 years old had the courage to come up here and ask us to do that. So you don't have to be a voter to come up here and, on any given issue, and tell us what you'd like to see or offer a suggestion, because it isn't about us. If you think you're 17 and you want to run for the council, then prove that your worth is worth it and get up here and tell us what you want this city to look like and what you request of us. It's not our building, it's everybody's building, and there's no requirements to age, because I wouldn't want to see a vote that says a 65-year-old woman can't serve on the city council anymore. So that's why I say, come up here, this is your building.
Okay, so that, I think, concludes temporarily the discussion on that issue. We do have other issues, and I guess the next one, the motion that was referred, is that the council resolve the issue of requirements for a preliminary election, consider random ballot order in general. So I think those are 2 separate questions, but why don't we take the first one first, which is the preliminary election. I think the issue there really is the number. And Councilor Murphy, you have thoughts on that particular number, or is anyone other? I'll open it up for general discussion among members of the subcommittee or other councilors. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do think that the number of 18 is there for a reason, that it's not just an arbitrary number, and that is that I think the actual language is more than twice the number of councilors, so that you have that you really have a challenger for each councilor if they chose to run again, so that there is that minimum amount of competition, but at the same time that the competition in the general election isn't so great that it begins to water down, say, the supposed challenger vote, so that you maximize the ability of challengers to be able to earn a spot on the council. So I think the number of 18 does have a strong rationale, and so the motion was really to provide some, expectation, reasonable expectation for people who might be thinking of running in the next election, so that there is that expectation before going into, say, the budget process or the electoral process, and to resolve that and have the council either determine that there is some other number that they would prefer, or that we won't be going back to the state legislature as we have in 2009 and in 2007 to ask for a waiver. One of the things that I would caution against is relying upon the assumption of always having this number of candidates, whether it be 19, 20, 21, whatever it is, to rely on that assumption of a low number of candidates. When you look back at some of the information provided in the packet by the Solicitor's Department, you see over the last decade that we haven't had a preliminary election. We have 3 elections in 2001, 2003, 2005, where there weren't sufficient a number of candidates to trigger that preliminary. And then we saw a slight uptick in the number of candidates for 2007 and 2009 to 21, and we sought a waiver for that. But that all leads me to the conclusion that we're not doing enough to encourage participation in the system itself. That I think that is a failure, to not have as many candidates as possible, to not have that thriving democracy that we saw maybe 20 years ago, but certainly 30 and 40 years ago. And that the more candidates you have participating, the more people you bring into the process, and the more likelihood that you have a council with a more varied number of perspectives and ideas about how to make changes in the city. So I think really what I'm looking for here is the council to either ratify the idea of sticking to what is in the charter, or to really come up with some other kind of number that they feel is suitable. Thanks.
All right, thank you. I think based on the solicitor's report, changing the number is a charter change, right, which should be accomplished in any number of ways. So, there are, I guess, strong reasons why the number is what it is. We could certainly vote to reaffirm that position, although I don't think any action we take could bind future councils or even this council necessarily as a result of changed circumstances. So, I'll open up for discussion among other members of the subcommittee or other members of the council.
Thank you.
Councilor Mercy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this particular motion, the rules say it's double plus one. So there's 9 city councilors, double would be 18 plus one. So whenever there is 19 people or more running, at least 19 at the least, then you have to have a primary. 3 times we've asked that we could bypass the primary because of financial obligations. It's a little bit like, I don't know, anywhere from $45,000 to $50,000 to have a primary, and we thought that we could save that money. I don't have any objection to having a primary. I personally really don't care. I think if I were a new person running, I'd like to see how I was doing in a primary. So I wouldn't want to take that away from anybody. But when you have to weigh all the options and you realize that, gee, it's a money that we could save. In fact, when you look at it that way, the person running for office for the very first time could use that extra money and not have to pay the newspaper or pay a radio station, but could generate more money and go full tilt in a final election. So these are things that I look at. If I had my choice, I would like to raise the number higher to maybe 25 so that we don't have to keep petitioning the legislature. They're getting upset with us doing that. Having said that, I know that does require a charter change. That's a monumental feat, and I don't know that if we have another election next year and we have 20 people, are we going to want to do that again? I don't know. So personally, I don't really care one way or another what we do, but my goal and motive was that we save some money, and that's the only reason I supported to bypass a primary. And it's good that you're bringing it up, but I just want to know what my colleagues feel, because I don't really care either way.
Councilman Donza.
Yeah, I agree with the maker of the motion and his comments, and that there's a mathematical reason for it to be twice the number of seats. And the simpler version of that is if you had people running for mayor and you had 3 candidates, you're going to have an election just to eliminate one. But the reason for that is so you can have a final election where one of them will attain a majority of the people voting. Without that, if you let the runoff be with 3 people on the ballot for the 1 seat, then someone with 40% of the vote would conceivably be elected because the other 2 candidates have split the remaining voters. And so you will have someone who's then mayor of that community without a majority having voted for that person. And so the same thing happens at the city council, and that's why they have the 2 times. So you have a final election with 18 choices, but that generally all of the ones that do get elected will come through with higher support. If we change the number to something else, we are always going to have the argument that we are potentially, say we set it to 22 and there are 23 candidates. Now we're holding an election again to eliminate 1. You always have that argument. I think that this is a cost of doing business for a government, that we have a process in place that as long as we're doing the at-large elections with a plurality of the vote being the point of election, then we should leave it as is, and we should not try to waive it. We should budget for that election, that preliminary. Now, if there aren't enough candidates, then we have a savings. We don't have to hold that election. But we're always going to have to budget for it because there are 3 separate elections that can trigger the preliminary. We have the regional school committee, our own school committee, and the city council. Any one of those, if there's more than 2 times the number of candidates than there are seats, would trigger a preliminary. So for any one of those 3, we might have a preliminary election. And the others, of course, we don't actually have preliminary elections for those that don't exceed the number because they are automatically nominated into the final election. So on the particular issue of what triggers a preliminary election, my recommendation would be that we leave it as is and that we don't try to cancel preliminary elections, at least on our council. I agree with the chair that we can't bind future councils, but we can just make it that we won't do it and recommend that others don't do it as well. If we have enough candidates to trigger preliminary, we should hold that election.
Thank you. Comments from other members of the council on this issue? Mayor Milanazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This morning, Councilor Mercier, Councilor Caulfield, and I attended the Pearl Harbor ceremony at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium, and we had some young people there from the Hellenic Academy talking about democracy and the price of democracy and what people fighting in wars actually gave for the ultimate price. They gave the ultimate price for democracy. And I, as a councilor and mayor, don't feel that we really can put a price on democracy which can be translated into voting. And I know that we have gone through some difficult budget times, but I, like Councilor Mendonça, feel that we should leave the number at 19, and that we go forward and if we get to that 19 number, that we have a preliminary election. Because again, as Councilor Caulfield and Councilor Mercier and I heard today, I mean, people gave the ultimate sacrifice so that we have the right to vote. And yes, if it comes down to $45,000 or $50,000, that, in my opinion, should be budgeted, and that we should, keep the system the way, or the charter, the way it currently exists. So that's what I'd like to offer in the way of comments.
Others on this issue? Anyone want to be heard on this? Are there members of the public that want to be heard on this particular question?
Mr. Chairman, my name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. One of the reasons why I support keeping it the way it is at 19 is because you want to know how well you're doing or how well you're not doing in certain areas of the city in the preliminary elections. Your strong areas, your weak areas. And that's why I favor having preliminary elections. You must not do away with them, because I just think that that is a loss of democracy, and it also does not help the candidates, the incumbents, or the challengers to know where they're strong, where they're weak, where they have to progress to come to the final elections in November. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Others on this issue? Anyone else want to be heard on this? Okay, what's the wish of the subcommittee on this?
I'd make a motion that we leave the way that it is. I really didn't care one way or another, but if my colleagues feel that it's that important to have a primary and we should budget for that, then I'm all for that. I guess that would be okay. So I'd make a motion that we leave it as it is, that it's double plus one, and we budget for that primary.
I'll second that.
Okay, so moved by Councilor Mercier, second by Councilor Mendonça. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So again, this will be a recommendation to the full council on this item. Okay,
And there is a way to look at it, Mr. Chairman, if you really want to. We are employing seniors to man the, the polling places and things, so we are putting people to work. We're putting our own people to work, so we could look at it that way as well, so I'm sure they'll be happy to gain an extra amount of money, so that's fine.
could reduce the number if you want. All right, the next item to be considered is the notion of a random ballot order. Anyone have any comments to offer on that? As I said at the council meeting, people on this side of the table will be less in favor of that than the people on this side. But so we'll go all the way to the end and hear from Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really hadn't even thought of that when making the motion, but
I'm just joking.
No, I understand. I'm still laughing, but I do think it is important to continually increase competition and give people as fair a chance at challenging for a seat here on the council, and that if it's if you don't have that preliminary election where there is wording in the charter to provide for random ballot order, that if you don't have that first election, that it be provided in the general election, so that you are really allowing the chance for people to challenge as successfully as possible, because there are significant advantages to being an incumbent, and so that's the rationale for the ballot order.
Could I comment on that?
Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not supporting the order of change. As I supported the last motion that you brought forward, Mr. Councilor Murphy, to leave it stand as it is, I'm asking that this motion let it stand as it is as well. I know that you want to make it fair for people, but this is a law, and I'm just saying that the very first time I ran 15 years ago, I was number 19 on the ballot, and I was not known, and I came in second. So I don't know how unfair that was for me, but I'm not going to support this.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes. I mean, I've seen in some cases the benefit of the having alphabetical order, and those near the top do benefit from that, or the challenges at the bottom. Since my name begins with an M, I'm in the middle either way, so may not get as much benefit from either way. However, I think there is something to this, and in fairness, that it should be a random order for all candidates. And actually, I think this is a case where the state has already changed their requirements. They're not listed alphabetically. I do believe this. I'm not sure how they picked them, but I believe this last election, at least, they were no longer listed alphabetically. But the provision that applies to us is specific to our form of government and hence the charter. If the city solicitor wants to comment on it.
As far as the state language, I believe also in section 42, I can see if that has been amended, but at least the general text that I had looked at was similar. There were some special provisions with respect to party designation, which obviously doesn't exist for the council.
Yeah. So I personally be willing to proceed with something that would provide for a random drawing for the ballot order, so that no one in particular, by chance of what their last name begins with has any advantage over someone else. In any case, I think that those that campaign hard, that the people that want to support them are going to find their name on the ballot, no matter where it is. But I do believe that putting it in a random order, by chance, having a drawing, would be fairer.
Okay, other members of the council or the public on this issue? Let me, we have a couple others. I'm a little concerned with the first issue we take up. We have 50 or 60 people in the room, and now we have these others, and there's really not been much by way of public comment or participation. I'm happy to keep proceeding down the list, and we can keep voting these items. We do have a few minutes still to continue the meeting. Or we can, I guess the other two issues to take up are term limits and district councilors. I don't know how members of the subcommittee feel about taking up those tonight. Should we keep going, or should we try and schedule another meeting?
We could recess and go, give more thought to it, but as far as term limits, I don't support term limits. I believe we have term limits every time we go to the polls. If people don't want me there, my term is done, and that goes for anybody else. So I don't support term limits. I think it's very unfair. I think that I've gained a lot of knowledge, and I think that I like to use it wisely, and I don't like to be serving two terms and I'm gone.
Okay. All right. Well, let's leave that issue aside. On Councilor Murphy, have you heard from others that want to be heard on these issues? Should the council proceed? I mean, we did schedule a meeting a few weeks ago. It's advertised in the same manner as all the other meetings. It's not anything that was done any extra advertising for this meeting, but it certainly wasn't a secret either. Do you have any preference as to how we proceed from here?
If you wanted to recess the subcommittee meeting until and devote some other committee meeting to this, then I suppose that would be fine. I would just comment briefly on the idea of term limits, and that is that there are a number of different ways to get at that same idea. It's not necessarily 2 consecutive terms or 3 or 4. There are a number of different ways that you can meet that, whether it be 3 consecutive terms, say, and then a break, and then no lifetime limit on the number of terms. I think, but if the subcommittee would rather have that discussion at some later point, then that might make sense. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, we have, I guess, on the floor for now, the issue of the random ballot order. So we have two competing views. So I guess if either of you made a motion, it would fail for lack of a second. I don't know exactly the chair's role in that situation.
Then I guess it rests with you, the tiebreaker.
Right, and I think at least on the substance of it, I side with you, and because I don't want to make a change in the order. Let me tell you, the first time I ran, I was last on the ballot. I finished 4th in that election, so it is possible to do well and not be near the top of the ballot. I think as we consider a number of these things together, there's some wisdom in the way the scheme is set up. I hadn't considered before necessarily on the number of candidates, but certainly as you broaden the number of candidates, you dilute the pool of anti-incumbent voters, if you will. And so sort of keep broadening the number of candidates really reduces the likelihood, just as a simple mathematical function, that someone can have some success. So I suppose there are some advantages built into the system for incumbents, but there are also, all of us at one point were challengers. All of us won elections, and and all of us work pretty hard, and I think we know others who have worked very hard to achieve elections. So, again, you know, I think leaving this the way it is something that makes sense for the council. It's worked well. And you know, I guess to Councilor Murphy's earlier point of, you know, there are not as many candidates as there were some time ago, could also be a measure of voter satisfaction. You know, that if people were really fed up, there'd be people coming out of the woodwork to run.
Absolutely, you're right.
So, I guess that's, in theory, that's at least possible. So, and from my point of view, it's never really been about the number of candidates. It's always been, if you have 9 people running for re-election and 1 very strong challenger, that's enough. That's enough to keep you motivated and working hard. You don't need, I'd rather have 9 weaker opponents than 1 strong one. And so, to me, it's really not about the number. It's about the type of person running and the type of campaign that they're going to run. And we've all run, you know, successful campaigns. We know what it takes. It doesn't necessarily take a lot of money, although that makes it easier. But you can win without raising and spending a lot of money, even at the outset. So
You can win with a truck and a plow like I did.
So, well, none of us can aspire to your level of success, Counselor, but, so, in any event, so on the issue of random ballot order, I guess I would second Counselor Mercier's motion that no change be adopted in the present system, and I guess Counselor Mendonça
I
will
would
vote against
assent,
that.
yeah.
Okay. And then on the issue of term limits and district councilors, I guess I would suggest that we recess this meeting and take that matter up at a future meeting, likely after the first of the year, and try and get the word out to people who may be interested to come down and speak on that issue. Is that
So moved.
Yes,
Okay.
I'll move to recess the meeting.
Okay, so motion, we'll report the results of tonight at the council and get those votes going, and then we'll take up these other open items at a future meeting. So, motion to recess by Councilman Mendonça, second by Councilor Mercier. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting stands recessed to a future date, likely at some point in January.